to AI Home Podcast, the first podcast for real estate resources and independent living strategies for the disability community. Why? Because accessibility is home. Hi, I'm Angela Fox, blogger and author of My Blue Front Door. In last month's episode, I briefly talked about the ABLE Act and how it can help you with saving for a home. Now, 30 days after the 30th anniversary of the ADA, it is a good time to look at what laws came afterwards and what laws are needed to help universal housing and home ownership for the disability community. In December 19, 2014, the ABLE Act amends the popular Internal Revenue Service health and savings account that many have used to spend tax-free money for medical expenses. In a lot of ways, it's very similar to an HSA account, but on steroids. The ABLE Act allows certain individuals with disabilities to save tax-free money to spend on disability expenses. Or maybe a more appropriate way of thinking about it is that the money can be spent to pay for any additional costs as a result of just being disabled. The idea or the spirit behind the ABLE Act was that the average dollar just doesn't go as far for the disability community because the environment is not accessible still. Think about it. If you're a person with a disability, how many times have you had to hire someone to help you do something that another person without a disability would not have to pay for? For me, I had to hire a house cleaner, lover, every month to help scrub the floors or clean the one bathroom in my house that my wheelchair simply cannot get into. I am sure that this is just one example of expense that may resonate with you, and hopefully you can meet the criteria I will now discuss. Again, the ABLE Act was to put economic spending power on more of an equal playing field for the disability community, but not all individuals with disabilities unfortunately qualify. There are two ways a person with a disability may qualify to use an ABLE Act account. First, anyone receiving Social Security disability are eligible and should be encouraged to open an ABLE account. For my realtors and others who are listening that may not be Social Security disability knowledgeable about, prior to 2014, the program made it impossible to save for money for unexpected expenses. If you are on Social Security disability, you could not have more than $2,000 in your savings account. That's it. You also could potentially see a reduction in benefits proportionally for every dollar you make over $20. Even if you are not disabled, everyone has gotten severely sick and knows that $2,000 can be gone in a month from direct and indirect costs. The disability community had for decades cried foul that this limitation was another way to segregate the people with disabilities from enjoying financial freedom and employment. Finally, the ABLE Act was created to correct this paradox. The ABLE Act allows you to save and roll over your money from year to year until it reaches $100,000. Now, no more need to be concerned about the $2,000 savings limit. The ABLE Act also got rid of the $20 per month earning cap by allowing you to put between $15,000 or more each month, depending on your circumstances. Yes, I said $15,000 or more each month. But what are the circumstances that will allow you to put even more? The ability to save more was added at the last minute to the 2000 tax plan. The ABLE Act to Work Act and the ABLE Financial Planning Act allows an account holder whose employer does not have a pension to put in more money. If you do not have a pension option, then you may contribute up to that year's poverty line on top of the standard $15,000 per month. Currently, the poverty line is about $12,000. In this circumstance, if you could then save up to $27,000 per year. This is a big deal because the largest type of employer in the United States isn't the federal government or even Fortune 500 companies. Nope. If you pull all the mom and pop businesses together into one business, these shops employ more Americans than the federal government or Fortune 500 companies combined. Yet many of these small businesses don't provide a pension, but clearly are the type of businesses that people with disabilities will be employed based on the sheer numbers of these type of businesses. Helping individuals with disabilities who are on Social Security get off the program was not the only goal of the Act, thank God. The disability community did not lose sight that being disabled is just expensive no matter what, even if you are employed and not on Social Security. They are just deserving for the same tax break. The original ABLE Act allows anyone who becomes disabled before their 26th birthday to qualify for the program. The disability has to be severe in nature, that it meets the definition found in Social Security disability. You must go to IRS and have a disability certificate completed by your doctor, but you do not have to submit it to IRS. When the Able to Work and Able Financial Planning Act was passed, it allowed the ability to roll over a regular 529 account or accounts used for a child's education into the ABLE Act accounts. It was needed to help families who set up these 529 accounts before receiving the child's diagnosis and now will be unable to go to college and use these funds in the original purpose. Personally, I applaud the change simply because it reduces the redundancy of having two accounts that could be used for education in the same way. You may ask yourself, why only up to 26 years old to qualify? There are two thoughts behind this depending on which political party you support, I take it. The Republicans say that the goal was to help those who would be the most disadvantaged, meaning children and young adults will find it hard to pay for expenses since employment opportunities are not allowed or are limited because of their age. The Democratic Party pointed to the fact that this age group is a very small percentage of the disability population, a good way to limit the scope. But at the end of the day, both parties had to compromise at the age of 26 years old. The ABLE Act and the sister acts aren't just governed by the federal government, but also require state intervention. Specifically, the ABLE Act required each state to figure out how it was going to implement this new account to allow as much flexibility as possible. States had many factors to consider. For example, would Maryland want to have it controlled by the state or allow private banks to set up the ABLE Act accounts? What should Maryland do about local benefits that may have a savings cap that's much lower than the ABLE Act yearly cap? Finally, how can Maryland make its program more marketable than other states, since individuals can apply at any state without being a resident, so you can shop around? These are some questions that the Maryland's ABLE Act task force was set up to figure out. I was very, very fortunate that I was appointed by Maryland's governor as a resident with a disability representative on the task force. I applied for the year-long program after contacting my state representative for support, and I got it. The task force had state Congress representatives, local government officials, and the disability organizations that were involved. Over the course of 6 sessions throughout the 2015 year, it was decided that the ABLE Act account would be part of the 529 account system, despite some concerns raised that additional training by state employees about interacting with individuals with disabilities, particularly those with intellectual disabilities, would be needed for good customer service. I had raised that a disability council should be created to have continual input about the customer service. Instead, a representative from the state's disability department will be involved with the 529 account program. I personally disagreed with this approach because it only really focuses on the administration aspect on customer service, not whether or not any changes to the ABLE Act account at the state level need to occur. Only a council of people with disabilities, in my opinion, could tackle this need. Finally, it was decided that the accounts could be invested in the stock market, which I do, and that any state benefits income would not be affected by the ABLE Act accounts, so there will be no contradiction. The ABLE National Resource Center is a national organization devoted on providing state contact information and other important information about the program for you to sign up. In most cases, it's as easy as opening up a bank account. It really can be. But if you don't find yourself qualifying, the disability community is continuing to push for more access to the program because it's wonderful. The National Down Syndrome Society is advocating Congress to pass the ABLE Age Adjustment Act, which would lift the age requirement to 46 years old. If you do already have an ABLE Act account, let others know about it. For example, in the State Maryland ABLE program, it wrapped up its fiscal year on June 30th with 2,314 ABLE accounts and totaling over $16 million in assets. The ABLE Act account could be used whether you are working or not. Hopefully you find yourself qualifying for the ABLE Act account and it can help you save for the purchase or modifications to a home. Visit the ABLE National Resource Center to compare the state options and find out how you can register for the program. For realtors and home improvement contractors, I have a free handout and tips to help you with any customer of yours who may qualify for this account on my blog that you can download. Having the ABLE Act account is a wonderful opportunity to save, to buy, and modify a home for the disability community. But wouldn't it be nice if there were homes out there already accessible? It's sad, but even with the changes within the Fair Housing Act requiring new developments to be accessible, it doesn't really put much of a dent, since most homes were built before the ADA or the changes in the FAH. But why not change the law to require accessible features for new sales of a home, not just newly built? It could be that until the Supreme Court case called Olmstead, which came much later after the ADA, many people with disabilities were forced to stay at institutions to receive ongoing care, totally eliminating the need for accessible housing. What is it? Well, on June 26, 1999, the United States Supreme Court held in Olmstead v. LC that unjustified segregation of persons with disabilities constitute discrimination in violation of Title II of the ADA Act. The court held that public entities must provide community-based services to persons with disabilities when such services are appropriate. Simply that you can't put all the medical treatments and social programs be housed only in institutions and then turn around and say that patients can't go back home because of the lack of community support. They rigged the system. The two Supreme advocates, that's what I call anyone who takes a case to the Supreme Court of the U.S., or even within their own states, these advocates, Louise Curtis and Ellen Wilson, were two women who had mental disabilities that voluntarily admitted themselves to the Georgia State Institution for treatment and were successful in getting the help. The doctors say that both women were ready to go back with the help of a variety of community-based programs. But despite medical professionals' recommendations, these women were denied to be released for years. Mind you, they voluntarily entered into the institution in the first place. Like thousands of people with disabilities at that time, medical institution became a prison and an entire generation of people with disabilities was segregated from society. The Olmstead decision opened the door to innovations and programs that make services and supports more available, allowing people to live their lives how they choose, in the communities they choose, with family and friends. It also has given the Aging and Disability Networks a new tool to advance community living. For my realtors, contractors, or new to the disability community, another way of thinking about this is to say that the Olmstead helped eliminate, in part, the Jim Crow era for disabilities. Think about it. How am I relating the Jim Crow to Olmstead? Well, the Jim Crow was a time where laws and practices were adopted by states that would disenfranchise any equality of African Americans despite federal law that abolished slavery and segregation. Contrast that to the disability community. Here we have the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, which said that the U.S. and the world, people with disabilities should not be segregated. But unlike African Americans, we only had to wait 9 years after our Independence Day for the passing of the ADA to start the slow descent of the Jim Crow era for the disability community. The slow descent of the Jim Crow era for the disability community has only continued because of the advocacy and state partnerships. For example, like many states, Washington, D.C. has a program devoted to ensuring that the ruling by the Supreme Court in the Olmstead case is actually upheld. In July, I virtually attended D.C.'s Olmstead Community Integration Working Group Town Hall meeting. The Olmstead Community Integration Working Group helps D.C. create a comprehensive working plan to serve qualified individuals with disabilities in accordance with the Supreme Court holding in Olmstead. This plan establishes certain goals of the district to help ensure that community-based treatment is provided to persons with disabilities. The town hall provides an opportunity for residents and advocates to ask questions after the hearing updates about the plan. If you find yourself in the position of needing more help at home because of a disability, please look into your city and state level government to see if they have a committee, task force, or office devoted to Olmstead community-based programs. They should. You might find yourself being able to join as a member to whatever your city or state has established in partnership with the disability community. Now, my realtors and contractors listening in any of the public hearings will provide valuable insight to what the disability community wants nearby to their homes. We are living in an era where many, both millennials and the senior citizens, are looking for walkable communities. And now a quick break from our sponsor. So as you can see and also hearing me, I am sitting on my back deck and I have my grill. I love being out in my back deck. I hate when I forget something and I have to wheel back into the house, particularly my cell phone. However, I'm excited to announce that another disabled-owned business, Cush Pocket, has come up with a solution by creating this fabulous wheelchair bag. I love this bag and have been a proud customer since almost the very beginning. Why do I like it? 1, it's huge. 2, it comes in multiple colors. But 3, you can put it anywhere on the base of your wheelchair. How does that happen? It's attached to the flap and it has little Velcro. You put it directly underneath your cushion of your wheelchair. And the Velcro and the weight of your body ensures that this fabulous Cush Pocket bag certainly will not move. I personally have 2 directly in front of me and it hides behind my legs. And I love that because it's so much more convenient. Trust me, you will never forget anything ever again. So as you can see down below, I have a direct link for Cush Pocket. And if you use my code Angela Fox, you will get $1 off. And not only will you get a fabulous bag, but you'll also support 2 disabled-owned businesses, Cush Pocket and my business, Horizontal Houses. Check it out. But the idea of walkable communities really came from the disability community in our push for walkable sidewalks that have ramps and then ramps and sidewalks that had access to the public transportation. Yet, when more want to be able to walk to restaurants and other life amenities, most housing developers have excluded the disability community into the conversation. Go figure. Let's change that today. If you are a housing developer or someone who works with one, have conversations with Olmstead programs and disability advocates and share your experience on social media with the hashtag #DevelopersForDisabilities with hashtag #HomesForDisabled, and don't forget to connect it with the disability Twitter holders with hashtag ADA because that's what we all use. Having a Supreme Court case 9 years after the ADA putting more individuals with disabilities in homes rather than institutions is helpful. The harsh reality, though, is unless insurance is willing to pay for long-term care at-home and affordable housing is provided, many are still forced into nursing homes, another institution. In fact, I learned something while attending one of the 88th 30th anniversary celebration conferences last month that it would have been a poison pill to include equal health care into the bill by both parties. No congressperson was interested in separating employers as the gatekeepers to what type of health insurance is being offered. Yet even 30 years after the ADA that would bar employment discrimination, being gainfully employed doesn't cure the health crisis. So what can be done if after 30 years of the ADA we need affordable health care and housing? Well, we answered this with creating and getting the Disability Integration Act introduced in 2017. The Disability Integration Act, if passed, can help with both housing and health care. The DIA would expand the progress of the Olmstead case through greater expansion on long-term care through community-based programs and greater enforceability measures like punitive damages if you don't do Olmstead. Requiring private insurance companies to cover long-term care at the home is also included. Something that many do not realize that almost all health care is not available at the home. I mean, only until COVID has there been a national push for teledoctor visits. Finally, DIA will require states to come up with accessible and affordable housing plans that are not directly linked to facilities for treatment, meaning states would be required to come up with a housing outside HUD programs or merely create home-looking state institutions. If you want to really understand how big of a change in housing policy this would mean, please read my blog article. I identify only a few states that have home ownership programs for disabilities at the state level. Despite these benefits, the DIA failed to get passed in 2017. The DIA was reintroduced January 2019 by Senator Chuck Schumer on MLK Day, intentionally. The disability community came together on the day of Senator Schumer's reintroducing the bill with new hope. No longer was the disability shackled to making a business case to the same health industry that causes so many within the disability community into institutions. Leaders within the disability community, like ADAPT and NCL, spoke at this event about how and why the approach had to get the DIA passed had been focused on the business case. It was well known, as I stated, that the ADA was not about equal health access. If the ADA failed, it was thought that because of the disability community's previous lobbying for change within another law, Medicaid, on multiple fronts. First was to try and get 25% of the money going to nursing homes for Medicare sponsorship to be used for community-based programs that could help people at home. That, of course, failed. Then legislation was introduced to reform the Medicaid to prevent wasteful spending, such as cookie-cutter services often left medical needs not treated and created new health problems from that neglect. Long wait lists also cause the same problems. Additional travel costs for family members to visit anyone in these institutions was also a financial burden. For those in the trenches, the stigma of Medicaid left very little room that people with disabilities could successfully manage their own health services and only saw that it would cost more, not less, if managed at the individual level. While I truly believe that this is the backdrop for reasons given for Medicare reform failure, I don't think it's the full picture. I believe that nursing homes have made far too much money and lobbied against this bill. Every time I see a very polished and well-decorated nursing home, I think to myself, if you really want a resident to feel at home, then keep them at home. Additionally, the rise of assisted living swanky centers have also helped institutionalize the idea that at a certain age with a permanent health condition, or will be soon, it's just part of growing old. I remember at one of my house parties, I was trying to encourage one of my guests not to move into an assisted living center in a few years, informing her that if she got sick and needed a lot of assistance, wouldn't it be nice to be in a home that she had been in for 30 years? Her response was, well, if I'm sick, I can't stay in my home anyways. So that says it all, doesn't it? No thought was given by my guests that maybe this shouldn't be the only option. Let alone that it would literally restrict your freedom to live where you want and be with family and friends. In my opinion, nothing's more American than the freedom to come and go as you please and with whom you like. I guess that only applies if you're not disabled. Luckily, through Senator Schumer's help, the DIA is being lobbied as the next best civil rights law for the disability community. It's pretty obvious what this would mean to the disability community. It would be the final nail in the coffin of the disabilities Jim Crow era. It will also fully intertwine the ADA by eliminating the last huge hurdle, housing and healthcare, that was not addressed by the ADA. This is why it was called the Disability Integration and not something like Disability Health and Housing Act. For realtors, contractors, housing developers, and even state government leaders, this law should be watched for when it finally passes because it will. Why? It will cause a housing boom at the state level for accessible housing that will even surpass the success from the passage of when the FNH or HUD programs, because employment discrimination was still an issue when FNH and HUD programs were established. We all can see today that people with disabilities are employed, but many are still unable to keep their housing or buy new accessible housing at the same rate as the able-bodied community. Why? Well, healthcare treatment has not allowed us to come and go easily. Too much time has been wasted going to facilities for medical treatment that forces many to take sick leave from work or leave work altogether because staying at the home is no longer a viable option. Nursing homes are also not designed with the idea that residents will be coming and going or on a schedule to get to a thing called, work. Once this is eliminated, you will see the disability community median income rise to historical heights, allowing more lucrative clients interested in buying expensive homes at higher-end neighborhoods. Now is the time for realtors, realtor associations, housing developers, contractors, and many more to advocate for the passing of the Disability Integration Act. I truly believe that both civil rights and the business strategy should be used. I just believe the business strategy should be a partnership with anyone in the business of housing industry and not from a health industry. If you are a business person in the housing industry and want to support the DIA, here is what you can do. First is to talk to your congressperson and make it clear your support and business can grow from the passage of the DIA. Second, tell others about your support using hashtag DIA and Homes for Disabled. Next, go to my blog and I have created a couple social media handouts that will allow you to post your support visually. Finally, showcasing the social media handout on your own website and getting others in the industry is extremely important. So it's no longer just a disability thing, it's being adopted by an economic industry. If you want more, please visit the website devoted to the passing of the law at www.disabilityintegrationact.org. Now is the time for On the Top Shelf portion of this podcast, reviewing products for everyday living success. Why? Because if you are in a wheelchair like me, it feels like everything you need is on the top shelf. Okay, so it's summertime and grilling is usually a big part of it. I fell in love with grilling when I had my first apartment. Like the stovetop, it was very easy for me to put food on and off from my wheelchair. Even better, I found myself eating healthier with all of the grilled vegetables I could do. I have even taken my grill across multiple states, believe it or not. Recently, my grill unfortunately was on its last leg. I was on the hunt for a new one and wondered, if any of the grills had accessibility features. But for this product review, I must be upfront. After researching, I never found a grill that met my needs. So I will tell you what I found in my research and give you a review of what grill I bought. Most of the results were related to grills at the parks, which kind of makes sense since there is a legal requirement to do that. Doing a deeper dive, I found 2 grills that advertised as being ADA compliant. The first was a Lennox Cinder grill. These grills' accessibility features include sitting at a comfortable height of 32 inches instead of the standard of 36. The gas tank can be mounted either on the side or in front, depending on what is best for you. It alleges that the side handles helps with lifting the lid of the grill more easily. Sound good until I saw the price of over $3,000. Clearly not going to happen. The other result was an article about how important companies is to ensure that they make outdoor fun like grilling accessible. But the article talked about the Draeger grills and how employees with disabilities will have easy access because of these grills. But other than a picture of a person in a wheelchair, there was very little details in the article about the height or any accessible feature. I even wrote to the author and got no response. So after striking out on my research, I did what anyone else would do. I went to Home Depot. At the Home Depot, they had 2 rows of a variety of grills. I noticed that all were at the standard height of 36 inches. I made a beeline straight to the Draeger grill to try to understand why this article I read would recommend this particular grill for accessibility. The copper-colored circular-shaped lid at first blush looked very thin, maybe 2 inches thick. When I wheeled up to lift the grid, I was very disappointed because it was heavy to lift. I expected it to be light. Nor was there any way to wheel underneath the grill a bit. At the end, I didn't have any answers to why the article would recommend the Draeger grill for accessibility. So I quickly moved on to the other grills. I found an employee. I wanted to double check that no other grill was available that would be at the 32-inch height. I also wanted to know if any of the grills had lids that had light weight or have assistance to open that lid to the grill. I admit I expected a blank stare because of similar experience I have had when asking about accessible appliances. Ironically, when I asked if any of the grills had Bluetooth capability, the employee responded he was only aware of that in others. Bravo! I ended up with a grill that had wood and charcoal option in a convenient pull-out drawer in the front for easy access. Pretty cool. So what should you consider when buying a grill outside of the price if you are in a wheelchair? Well, the height, so you can reach the lid in a wheelchair or if you need to sit in a chair for a while to rest. 2, a lightweight lid or lid assistant features. With sadness again, none of the grill specs will tell you weight of the lid itself. Option for the gas to be relocated on the side or the front instead of the back for easy access. And any special features like the wood box be in front drawers so you don't have to strain to reach that portable wood box that you might actually send, if you're a professional like I am, you have to put the little wood box grill in the back or middle to back. And so you kind of have to lean over. So those are the 4 things that if you're looking for an accessible grill that you might want to consider. Again, unfortunately, I didn't find any that actually have that. But that is my review on the top shelf. In conclusion, I want to remind everyone listening that it takes a village to make a change. Nothing can live just within ourselves. So I invite you to join my Facebook page, Accessibility is Home, to ask your questions about real estate and independent living concerns for your disability. Or, better yet, just share your success stories. And please use the hashtag #HomesForDisabled on all of your social media networks. Don't forget to join my Instagram and Twitter at DoorMyBlue, which is short for the title of my book on Amazon called My Blue Front Door. I have also created a website for my book, blog, and of course this podcast, which can be found at www.angelafoxbooks.com. Please don't forget to check out my free handouts and interesting articles on my blog's website. So thank you for listening to this podcast because accessibility is home.